So hey everybody, this is Tracy here with another edition of A View from Tracy's Point, and we are here today to discuss 20 reasons why Serena Williams owes Naomi Osaka an apology, and actually she owes the US Open an apology as well. And this is stemming from the incident that took place on yesterday at the US Open Women's Finals in Flushing Meadows, New York. So for those of you who are not familiar with the situation, let me go ahead and get you caught up. So Serena by far is the greatest women's tennis player ever to date. And her and Venus Williams followed in the footsteps of tennis great Arthur Ashe in changing the game of tennis, which was a predominantly white sport for a very long time. And then Arthur Ashe came in, did his thing. And there's been some other black players who didn't really make as big of an impact as Arthur Ashe and the Williams sisters. But things are really changing, and we're seeing more and more black players getting into the sport, and they're stepping up the game and they're raising the bar. For the United States, we have players like Sloane Stephens, who won the US Open last year, Madison Keys, who she was in the finals last year against Sloane Stephens. Then we have up-and-coming male player Francis Tiafoe, who I believe in about 5 years is definitely going to be at the top of the game. And we have this newcomer, Naomi Osaka. So Naomi Osaka's story is that she is the daughter of a Japanese woman and a Haitian father. And they emulated the whole technique and process of Richard Williams in getting their daughters. Naomi also has a sister named Mara who plays professional tennis, but she hasn't risen. Sort of like Venus and Serena, whereas Venus was really good, then Serena came along. Mara hasn't seen that same success, but she is a professional tennis player. And so basically, he trained his daughter. He taught himself tennis, trained his daughters in tennis. He didn't put them in the UST junior tournaments. Basically trained them. They played each other, and then when they were old enough to play in like the challenger matches and those things, then he put them in those matches, and that's what built their points up so that they could, so that Naomi can get into some of these bigger tournaments. So he pretty much followed Richard Williams' recipe to the letter. So Osaka often talks about sitting in the nosebleed section at the US Open and dreaming of one day playing Serena Williams in the finals. And this was her opportunity in this year's US Open. And then one thing I forgot to mention is that Naomi claims Japan as her country because they didn't play in the juniors, and so she didn't have enough points and rankings to actually be noticed or get on the radar of the USTA to go into their junior development program. And so all these countries have money that they devote to different sports and different athletes, and so Japan doesn't have that many Japanese players, and so they had money available. Naomi claimed them as her country, and she was able to get funding. But she's lived in the United States since she was 3 years old. The family moved from Japan to New York when she was 3, and then they moved to Florida, and she has lived in Florida like most of her life. If there needed to be a negative story out of Osaka's triumph, it should be the downplaying of her blackness, like Madison Keys. And this is like a whole other topic that probably requires a whole nother video, because Madison Keys is another biracial player. Her father is black and her mother is white, but her father doesn't want them to focus on the fact that she's black and do the comparison to Serena and Williams and all of that. And so she kind of caught flack for that when she first started playing tennis. But now, people don't really worry about it. But what I did find interesting was with Naomi, they're celebrating her. They keep saying, oh, she's the first Japanese woman. She's the first Japanese woman to win the U.S. Open. But it's like she's also the first Haitian woman to win the U.S. Open. So it's like they make no mention of the fact that she's Haitian. So with Serena having so much notoriety and endorsements, her behavior last night to me was not about women's empowerment or removing isms. It was totally about a temper tantrum and expecting special consideration because she wears the crown of being the greatest of all time. In retrospect, she is probably held to a higher standard because she wears that title. And so it just really bothers me. And this is the reason that I'm even doing the video, is because I cannot believe the number of women that are saying, oh yeah, she was a class act. She personified class. And I'm sitting there like, the woman was out on the tennis court yelling and screaming and just behaving badly because of a call that was a legitimate call. And so how women can sit back and say that Serena was right, and Serena going on and on about this is sexism and gender bias and racism, and I was sitting there like, girl, are you serious right now? And so I know there's a lot of women who agree with me, because I've talked about it on my Facebook page, and I have had women that have commented in my inbox like, I know what you mean and everything, but they're afraid to speak up because they don't want to argue with people on social media and that type of thing. And so it's sort of like this big barrage of feminists that are coming together saying, Serena was right, she was treated unfairly, and look at how other men in tennis are treated. And I'm here to tell you that a lot of people behave badly in tennis, both men and women, black, white, from other countries. They all do it, and it depends on the umpire. Some umpires are more lenient than others, and some of them don't take any mess. But I've seen men in tennis get thrown out of games. They go through the whole code violation process. Plenty of men have been fined like thousands of dollars for their on-court behavior. So Serena has no leg to stand on by saying that what happened to her in this tennis match last night was due to her race or was due to her being a woman, because there are plenty of men, and I'll point out one in, people like to keep bringing up John McEnroe. But John McEnroe played tennis 30 years ago, and he used to act the purity damn fool on the court. But I can tell you that John McEnroe has been kicked out of matches. He has been fined severely, so that's not a good representation. And then also, since John McEnroe played tennis, the rules have changed, because it used to be you get a warning, you get a point violation, and then you get ejected from the game. And nowadays, it's you get a warning, you get a point violation, and then you lose a game. And then I think the next time you lose a game, and you just keep losing games until you just lose the match. And so for people to be trying to compare that is really ridiculous. And then you have Nick Kyrgios, who's, I think Nick is about 25 years old. He's an up-and-coming tennis player on the men's side. I mean, like, awesome, amazing talent. But he doesn't really want to play tennis, but that's what he's really great at. Like, if he could have his way, he would be playing basketball, but somehow tennis, is his bread and butter. And sometimes he goes out on the court and he plays an awesome match. And other times he goes out there and he just is a butthole. But I can tell you, in the last 3 years, Nick has been fined, I know, over $50,000 for behavior on the court. He was banned last year for 8 weeks because of something he did over in England or something. And then earlier this year, he was banned for 28 days or suspended for 28 days for doing, like, he took a water bottle or something. It was like running his tongue around the top of the water bottle, like simulating, I guess he was eating the woman out or something. He has been fined for arguing with another player, Stan Wawrinka. They got into an argument about the fact that Stan's girlfriend had slept with another tennis player and that she was only 19 and Stan's in his 30s. He was fined for that. So Serena really has no argument when it comes to how men are treated and how women are treated, because men get warnings, men get point violations, and the only difference is Serena kept going to the point where she reached the ultimate violation, whereas most people, once the referee warns them and tells them not to do something, they might keep arguing amongst themselves, like when they're sitting down at the changeover and getting mad and stuff, but they don't keep badgering the umpire and keep arguing with the umpire like Serena did. So the rules of tennis prohibit coaching during Grand Slam and ATP tour matches. So not only does replay show Serena's coach, Patrick, I can't pronounce his last name, Moratoglu or something like that, making hand gestures to Serena because he was doing something like this, which they were saying means to move forward and get the ball early. They say that he also nodded his head like Serena had acknowledged what he was telling her to do. But Serena insists that that is not the case, that did not happen, that she didn't notice, if he was coaching, that they don't have any system of, doing hand signals or anything like that. But what the rule states is that it doesn't really matter if the player sees the coach doing it. It doesn't matter if the player responds to it. Coaches are not allowed to do hand signals, to be coaching from, up in the stands. So the violation, the violation that Serena received was a valid violation, and it was only a warning. And the warning was basically your coach is doing inappropriate coaching, and you have a warning. I brought it to your attention. Now, the next time he does it, you lose a point. So it was just a warning. All Serena had to do was say, basically she said what she wanted to say. She was basically like, he wasn't coaching. I didn't see him coaching. I'm not a cheater. I would rather lose the match than cheat. And, she said what she said. And that should have been the end of it. So what happens with most players is that the chair umpire says, you've been caught coaching. There's a coaching violation. The players always say, my team wasn't coaching, I wasn't receiving coaching. They always say it. I've never heard a tennis player say, oops, my bad, yeah, he was coaching me. So why Serena just couldn't accept the warning and be done with it is beyond me. I don't know. Now all these people are coming out saying, there's always coaching in the stands, and, I don't know why it's a big deal. But at the end of the day, the code book says that coaching is not allowed from the stands. And so to argue because somebody got called out about it, when people get called out for it all the time, and then also take into consideration the chair umpire is sitting in a high chair. He's watching the match, so he's not going to see everybody that's in the stands that may be coaching, but they do catch people 20-30% of the time. They do catch people coaching, and they do warn the player, and then may go on to do a point violation if it continues. Now, one good point that Sloane Stephens' coach made was that since it's a big issue, why not make it like a separate code? And then that way you get the warning, you get the point, and then if your coach continues to do it, then the coach is ejected from the game, and maybe the coach is fined or the coach is banned from coming into the matches. And that made a lot of sense to me. I like that idea. Now, Serena was claiming gender bias. So I don't understand that, because on the men's side in the ATP, so men are ATP, women are WTA. So on the ATP side, men are not allowed coaching at all. On the WTA side, in non-Grand Slam matches, they allow coaching. Once in every set, female players in lower tournaments can have their coach come out on the court during the 90-second changeover and receive coaching. So they've already made concessions for women. They allow women to have on-court coaching during their tournaments that are non-Grand Slam tournaments. And then even with the challenger matches, so they have like what's called wild cards that lead up to the Grand Slams, and basically you play a tournament and then so many people from that tournament who otherwise wouldn't have gotten into the Grand Slam, they get to compete and then they fill these wild card seats. So this year at the US Open, they experimented with doing coaching during the Challenger Series, and then once again the men did not want the coaching, but the women, they took advantage of the coaching. And I personally don't think that coaching should be allowed, because tennis is an individual sport and the basis of it is to be able to figure it out on your own, to have your plan of execution, be able to work, figure out a plan to combat the way that your opponent is playing so that you can beat them in the game. So you shouldn't have coaching. And it's sort of like chess. Like when you're playing chess, do you have people standing behind you telling you which move to make and how you should be doing it? No, when you're playing chess, it's about your mind against their mind, your intellect, your strategy, you figuring out how to get the best moves. And so trying to make an issue of the fact that, coaching is, people should be allowed to coach, that kind of like takes away like the biggest part of tennis, which is getting out there and figuring it out on your own. So after Serena received the coaching violation and she told the man, how dare you accuse me of cheating? I don't cheat. I'd rather lose than cheat. He was like, okay, fine, but your coach was cheating. Your coach was, actually, he didn't even accuse her of cheating. He was like, your coach was coaching, and that's a violation. And then she went on back. So now I think it was the 5th game of the 2nd set, and she had 2 double faults and she ended up losing the game. So then she takes her racket and she beats the racket on the ground and breaks the racket, which is another code violation. It's called abuse of racket. Now, I don't agree with this call because it's your racket. You paid for the racket, so why can't you break the racket if you want to? And if the people who are giving you the rackets, like if you're getting sponsored by Prince or Wilson or somebody, and they want to keep giving you rackets to go out there and break, that's between y'all, and maybe they can penalize you for breaking their rackets or drop your sponsorship because you're out there, breaking rackets. So that I don't agree with, but it is a penalty. So she's had the warning for the coaching. She breaks the racket, and then she gets the point violation. But she's just so all over the place, she ain't paying attention. And so when she goes back on the court, she realizes that Naomi is like 15 love because they've given Naomi the points. Girl, that man did not say you was cheating. He said your coach was coaching, which he was. Let it go. Like, you've already lost the first set 6-2, which she lost fair and square. Naomi simply outplayed her. So you've already lost that. Let it go. Now you're down 2-3 because she was up 2-3, I think. And then Naomi ended up coming back and she was down 4-3. And so now you're arguing, you're taking the focus off the game when what you really need to be doing is paying attention, trying to refocus, regroup so that you can get back into this match and take it to a 3rd set tiebreak. But instead, she chooses to focus on this call that happened 20 minutes ago that should be over and done with. And so she just gets to arguing, won't let it go, just refuses to let it go. So then the man gives her the 3rd penalty, which is a game. So once again, she's not paying attention because she's in this rage, and they're trying to calm her down and explain to her, like, you violated the rules and this is how it goes, and there's nothing you can do. Like, calm down and get back on the court so you can try and win this set. But she wasn't having it, and she was going on and on and on. And if you follow tennis and you have followed Serena's career, then you would know that she did the exact same thing in 2009 when she was playing Kim Clijsters in the US Open semifinals. Then she turned around and did the same thing against Sam Stosur in the U.S. Open when I think she was losing in that match, and they were in the finals, and she just went off the deep end. Now, in both of those tournaments, the umpire was actually a woman. But because it's a man, now it's sexism, and they've got it out for you and they're mistreating you. And so I wonder if the bulk of the people that are siding with Serena and talking about, oh, she was a class act, they did her wrong, are these people who actually watch tennis, follow tennis, who know the history of how she's behaved on court when she's in tough matches where she thinks she should have won, or she's feeling, some kind of way on the court and she just lose her mind. And then I find it interesting that the only time Serena has done this is when she's playing in New York at the US Open. So I don't know if it's something about the US Open that's a trigger for her, but to be out there blaming everybody but herself for her meltdown, I just think it was wrong. And then Billie Jean King had the audacity to come out and support her and say, oh yes, there is a double standard in tennis, and Serena's going to lead the charge. She's going to lead the way to bring equality to tennis. I actually did a post on Facebook where I was talking about the whole equal play, equal pay. And, if you follow tennis, you know that like in Grand Slams, men play the best 3 of 5 tournaments. Women play the best 2 of 3. I've already pointed out that women can get coaching in lower level tournaments, whereas men don't get coaching. Just the sheer athleticism of men, like a men's match lasts anywhere from 3 to 5 hours unless the guy, the loser is just so sorry and the winner goes out there and just beats him in 3 sets, 6-0, 6-0, 6-0. But men are on the court like 3, 4, 5 hours. The average woman's match lasts about an hour and a half to 2 hours, and if they go to 3 sets and it's a real grudge match, they might be out there about 3 hours, 3.5 hours. But I believe that the tournaments where men play best 2 of 3, just like the women 2 of 3, that those tournaments should have equal pay. But to think that they expect equal pay in the Grand Slams when it's definitely not equal play makes no sense to me. But that's what the women are fighting for. So, then they got men afraid to say anything because then they get blasted and, people are telling them that they're wrong and they're sexist and everything. And I'm just like, right is right and wrong is wrong, because for a woman, for Serena, or anybody else to get up and say that the Grand Slams are equal to me is just crazy, because there's seriously nothing equal about the women's tournament and the men's tournament when it comes to the number of games that are played and all of that. So I know people are going to be pissed about that, but it is what it is. Then the last thing before I get to my 20 reasons why Serena owes Naomi Osaka an apology has to do with after the match. So people were booing and carrying on, and the commentators were saying, oh, they're booing Osaka, blah blah blah. I'm just like, how do you know they're booing Osaka? They were booing during the match. A lot of times the people in the stands will boo when a player is arguing, just like won't let it go, and they keep arguing with the referee, so they'll start booing. But then the commentators were sitting there saying, oh, they're taking Serena's side, they're booing the chair umpire. And I was like, okay, can we take a survey to see who they were booing? Were they really booing the umpire, or were they booing because Serena was showing poor sportsmanship? And then when it got to the point where it was time for the trophy ceremony, so they were setting up and they got up on the stage, and then the fans were booing. And so they were saying that, oh, well, they're booing Naomi. That's not right. But what they were actually booing was the fact that the chair umpire is usually given an award for serving, for overseeing the match. And they usually come up on the stage and get their reward and whatever it is that they give them. But he was asked not to come up on the stage, and then they walked him. They even actually told he was standing to the side, and they told him to just leave the court altogether. And I'm sure they told him that not because they thought he was wrong. They told him that because they knew that the fans were going to just go ballistic and they wouldn't be able to get through the ceremony. So when you heard that booing right at the beginning when they were getting ready to present the trophies to Serena and Naomi, that was actually the umpire walking off the thing. But Miss Serena, after you done just took the spotlight over the whole match by acting the way that she was acting, she then turned around and tried to be like the savior. And actually, after Naomi won the match and won the tournament, Serena gonna put this smile on her face and she gonna go over there and give her this big hug like she was so happy for her. And I'm just like, girl, stop, please. So now they're up there ready for the trophy ceremony. So then Serena comes up and she was like, okay, everybody, no booing, no booing. Naomi did a good job. She won the match. Let's honor her. So then, everybody in the stands started clapping and stuff. And I'm just like, Serena, stop trying to take the spotlight off this girl. So then she was like, I'm not going to answer any questions about the match. This is Naomi's opportunity to shine. And I was just like, this girl is so egotistical. It is not funny. So poor Naomi, she was up there boo-hoo crying. She apologized for winning the tournament, saying that she knew that the fans wanted Serena to win. And I'm just like, I cannot believe that this is supposed to be the happiest day of this girl's life, of her career. And it has just been stripped away from her. And then to add insult to injury, you got all these people on social media, celebrating Serena and like, oh, Serena, that was great. You stood up for women. You stood up for women's rights. Serena ain't standing up for nobody but herself. And she was basically trying to deflect from the fact that that girl was kicking her ass on that court. And she just had a meltdown because she did not have an answer to get back in that game and take it to a third set. And then the question that I had to people, but nobody seems to want to answer the question, was say he didn't give her the game penalty. Say he just let her keep talking and berating him and calling him names, which I thought was kind of contradictory because you're mad at him and demanding an apology because you say he insinuated that you were a cheater, but then you turn around and question his integrity by calling him a liar and a thief when the man really was doing his job and every penalty that she received was a valid penalty. So today, Serena was fined $17,000 for her behavior, and rightfully so. $10,000 for abuse of chair umpire Carlos Ramos, who, by the way, is like one of the top chair umpires in tennis. So it wasn't like he was just some random guy who didn't know what he wanted to do. He's probably one of the top three chair umpires that they have. Then $4,000 for being warned for coaching, and then $3,000 for breaking her racket. But don't worry, guys, Serena gonna be okay because the money is going to be deducted from her $1.85 million that she received for being the runner-up to Naomi Osaka. And that's the other part of this whole thing. Like, these are millionaires out there acting the fool, and we going hard. But if the lady down the street, was in the same situation, then we'll be calling her all kind of names, saying she ghetto and hood and all of that, and won't stand up for her and what it is that she's fighting for. So now, with all of that out of the way, let me get to my 20 reasons why Serena owes Naomi Osaka an apology. My number one reason why Serena owes Naomi Osaka And apologies, and these are in no particular order. They were just my random thoughts that I wrote down. Osaka has expressed her deep admiration for Serena, as I mentioned before, and that her biggest dream has been to one day play Serena in the finals of the U.S. Open. And last night, Serena was not acting like anyone's idol or shero. Number 2, Serena stole what should have been the happiest moment of Osaka's life and made it all about her during and after the match. Number 3, Osaka is coached by Serena's longtime hitting partner. His name is Sasha. Oh, his last name begins with a B, but they call him Big Sasha. So not only did she disrespect Osaka, she took away the biggest moment of his life as a head coach, because he transitioned from being a hitting partner to being a head coach. And I think he went to work for Victoria Azarenka, who got pregnant and went out, and then he worked with Caroline Wozniacki. Then that relationship broke, and now he's with Naomi Osaka. So not only did she rob Osaka of her moment, but she robbed Sasha of his. Number 4, Osaka beat Serena in the first round of the Miami Open in March, and I think it was something like 6-1, 6-0 or something. It was bad. It was pretty bad. And granted, Serena was just coming back from maternity leave and all of that, but she was totally humiliated in that match because, like, Miami is considered her hometown tournament. She's won the tournament several times. So I really believe that Serena was seeking revenge in this U.S. Open match for that beatdown. And to find out that even though she's more fit and, she was in the finals at Wimbledon and she's on her comeback and she's charging forward, getting back into the game, and then she still got the same beat down at her higher level as she did at her lower level. So number 5, Osaka was beating Serena in every stat there was before the violation and after. So I don't think that the violations or the outbursts or anything had anything to do with Serena losing that match. Serena lost that match fair and square because Osaka outplayed her. And everybody, including myself, was praying for a third set. It was like, Serena, calm down, come on girl, pull it together. And I was actually watching the match. I was out to dinner with a friend of mine, and we were in the restaurant watching the match, and they had TVs at each one of the booths, and I'm telling you, by the end of that match, every TV in the restaurant was on Serena's match, and everybody was sitting there looking totally stunned and horrified by the way that Serena was acting. Number 6, Venus was in a similar situation a few years ago. I believe it was 2016, and it was the same, I believe it was the same umpire, and he called her for coaching. Venus, was upset. Like Serena was upset, like, you're questioning my integrity. I'm not a cheater. I don't need coaching. I never accept coaching, even at the tournaments. And I think that was a tournament where she could have had coaching. And she said, I never do it, so don't ever question me like that. So Venus said what she said, said what she needed to say, got it off her chest, brushed it off, and got back into the match. And it was nothing about, oh, he was racist or he was sexist and the rules are unfair. She was just like, I don't cheat, I don't receive coaching, don't accuse me of that. Number 7, Osaka was showing true sportsmanship as Serena imploded, and it probably added to Serena's fury. She probably couldn't understand why Osaka, this little 19, 20-year-old, wasn't unnerved and willing to allow her back into the match. So she was carrying on like that, probably thinking she was upsetting the girl, because the girl is so timid. And I think it was when she made it to the quarterfinals, she was boohoo crying after the match. And then when she made it to the semifinals, she was just very stoic. And the announcer asked her, he was like, you were crying in your last match. Why are you not crying now? Aren't you excited and happy? And she said, I am. She said, but people on social media were making fun of me because I was crying. So now I'm not showing any emotion. So she's a very emotional, very sensitive girl. And I really believe that Serena thought that she was going to intimidate her and knock her off her game by out there carrying on like she was. But Osaka was not moved, Serena. And I think that annoyed Serena also. Number 8, the pressure to win another Grand Slam title to tie Margaret Court, who has 23 Grand Slams, and then Serena, so she would need one to tie Margaret Court's record, and she would need two in order to surpass Margaret Court and hold the record on her own. And I just think that it's really weighing in on Serena, and the fact that, you know, her journey was stopped because she had, you know, got pregnant and had the baby. Then she had the medical complications, and she's having a harder time coming back, you know, into the game. And they've given Serena so many exceptions, and this is the other reason why Serena's really pissing me off right now, is because she is not the first woman to have a baby and come back on the tour. But everybody else that's left to have a baby and come back, they have had to start from the bottom and work their way back up to the top. And if you saw, I'll put the link below, but I actually did a video after Wimbledon where I actually talked about like the favoritism they're showing Serena, and how, in my mind, if you're really the greatest of all time, she would have started at the bottom and made her way back up like that. You know, but instead they're giving her special rankings. They're, you know, even after she won Wimbledon, she was ranked high enough to be a seeded player in the US Open, but they still boosted her up 9 games. So when you, 9 points in the rankings, so that she was number 17 instead of number, or maybe it was 11 points. Maybe she was in the low 20s, and then they bumped her up to 17. And the only reason they didn't make her higher is because Venus is number 16, and they didn't want to disrespect Venus, but they could disrespect all the other players. So this is another reason why Serena can't be saying that they got it out for her and that there's inequality, because these people have made so many concessions to get her back into this match, and they were basically trying to make up for the fact that she lost to Naomi Osaka in Miami because she was an unseeded player, and she ended up playing one of the better players on the tournament. So by giving her these rankings and boosting her up and giving her special placement, they ensured that she would not have to play the best players in the first few rounds and lose, that she would have a better opportunity to, you know, rise in the tournament and make it to the finals by playing, you know, lesser skilled players, which I think is totally unfair, but that's a story for another day also. So the 9th reason I think that Serena Williams owes Naomi Osaka an apology is that no sexism or gender bias or racism was exhibited in this tournament. And like, you know, people want to throw up John McEnroe, you know, 30 years ago, received penalties, fines, and even ejections. Nick Kyrgios has been fined numerous times, and so has Katerina Pliskova, who took her racket and just totally destroyed the umpire's chair in a match a few months ago while the umpire was still sitting in the chair because she was upset about a call. And, you know, she received a warning, she received a penalty, and she received a hefty fine after the match. And she's a white woman, so no racism there. Number 10, Serena was using the chair umpire to release frustration that she was feeling at being outplayed, and it went too far and backfired on her. And that's what I pretty much talked about this entire video. Number 11, Serena demanding an apology by claiming the coaching violation was an attack on her integrity, was ridiculous and a waste of time, because no umpire in the history of sports is going to come back and apologize to a player for giving them a penalty that they deserve, that they violated the rule and received the penalty. And number 12, it was really disheartening to see the number of, you know, black women in entertainment, like Ava DuVernay and Shonda Rhimes. They were sitting there boosting it up like, oh yeah, you know, Serena did the right thing. She was a class act. I'm so proud of her. And I got to thinking, like, maybe this is why our kids are acting the fool in school and nobody seems to be doing anything, because we've gotten into this mindset that, you know, yelling and screaming and having a temper tantrum is proving a point when it really isn't. Number 13, Serena claiming gender and racial bias in the hissy fit does not help the fight for marginalized people to gain equality, and for her to throw in the part about, her being a mother and setting an example for her daughter, I thought was ridiculous. And when she went into the monologue with the lady that helps run the tournament, talking about she's fighting for equality, and it sounded more pre-planned, like maybe it was part of her acceptance speech when she won the tournament, but now she was realizing she wasn't going to win the tournament and she wouldn't have the platform to say the speech, so she decided that she would say it there. I mean, she was up there with the fake tears, and it just sounded so pre-rehearsed. It just didn't sound like I'm angry and I'm getting this off my chest. She really sounded very just rehearsed with what she was saying. So I was like, okay, well, maybe that was going to be her speech when she got up there about what all she's doing to change tennis and make it equal. And I really think that her and Billie Jean King are in cahoots. I can see where she really thinks that the men and women are on the same level field, but like I said earlier, with the Grand Slams, it is not equal and it is not level, because the men put in way more work at Grand Slams than they do, and they're really pushing, because I think the US Open is one of the Grand Slams that doesn't do equal pay. Don't quote me on that, but I think that what this was all about for them is trying to push that agenda that the Grand Slams, all of the Grand Slams, should be offering equal pay for equal play, when it definitely is not equal play in those tournaments. Number 14, in other sports, if you berate the referee or the umpire, you get penalized up to being ejected from the game. And these are, male-dominated sports. Like basketball, they're getting technical fouls. They're getting thrown out of the game. Football, they get the personal fouls. They get ejected from the game. So once again, where is the gender bias in this? Number 15, the way the code violations are set up, it's sort of like when you're on your job or you're in school, and so like you get in trouble, you get a detention. You get in trouble again, you get a 1-day in-school suspension. You get in trouble again, you get like a 3-day out-of-school suspension. Get in trouble again, it's a 10-day suspension, and you fail your classes for the semester. On your job, you might get a warning. You get you get written up, and then you get suspended, and then you get fired from your job. It's the same process. You get a warning, you get a point penalty, you get a game penalty, you get a game penalty, and you just accept the punishment and you move on from it. Number 16, the majority of the people commenting and showing solidarity or basing their opinions on sound bites and social media posts. Most don't follow tennis or know the rules, and we live in a society where people are more concerned with trending than they are with taking a real stand. And it just really bothers me to see like big name people, in Black entertainment, siding with Serena and boosting her up, saying that she showed class and dignity and she's in the fight for the women. And I'm just like, y'all are doing her a huge disservice by co-signing her foolishness. The number 18 reason that Serena owes Naomi Osaka an apology is, like I mentioned previously, since her return, she's been shown all types of favoritism, and Serena is using the mother card like she is the only woman on tour to ever come back after having a baby. And then you add to it the ad campaigns and the huge media blitz, surrounding her, because people want her. We all want her to get that 23rd and 24th Grand Slam. And so then you throw in the whole thing about the cat suit, being banned from the French Open dress code for next year. And I know a lot of people, a lot of reporters, keep saying that she was banned from the French Open for wearing the cat suit, when Serena was not banned from the French Open for wearing the cat suit. She actually played in the French Open, and she withdrew in the match. I think it was the 4th round. She was supposed to play Maria Sharapova, and she pulled out with a shoulder injury. And so what the French Open said that they were going to do is they're changing their dress code for next year that will prohibit women from wearing those type of outfits. And I don't have a problem with the cat suit. I don't know why they have a problem with the cat suit, but it's their tournament, and I guess they can do what they want to do. Like, she definitely couldn't have wore that cat suit to Wimbledon because they have one of the strictest dress codes in tennis. But I can see, where people were feeling some kind of way about that. Commentators, believing that she deserved extra consideration because she's the greatest of all time, I think is going to her head. And even as she was imploding on the court last night, they were still they were like celebrating her, going, "Ooh, tell him, Serena," and that type of thing. But then when it really got to the point where she lost the game, then they were kind of like trying to pull back, like maybe she needs to let it go. Number 19 reason, Nike just released their 30th anniversary campaign, which was also kind of controversial because they named Colin Kaepernick as the face of the 30th anniversary campaign with them. But in the video or the commercial, it's like a 2-minute and 5-second commercial that they released. Serena is featured in that commercial, and the commercial is basically saying, despite all the odds, just do it. Just get out there and be crazy enough to believe that your dreams can come true. Be crazy enough to believe that you could be the best ever at what you're doing. And I think that Serena just went against all of that in the way that she acted. And of course, it's not going to impact her endorsement or her sponsorship from Nike. But I just think that it kind of shot down or kind of diminished that whole rollout, because they rolled out the commercial during the third quarter of the NFL season opener, and so they got this momentum going. And then to have one of their people that they endorsed to come out and act like this, I thought was kind of like not a good look. And then the final reason, reason number 20, why I think Serena Williams owes Naomi Osaka an apology, is because poor Naomi was just lost in the moment. Now, she wasn't lost on that tennis court when she was whooping Serena behind, but when she was up there, to receive the trophy, the biggest moment in her life, she about to make $3.8 million for this tournament. And instead of celebrating, she was apologizing for winning the match. And like, this was the biggest match of her career. And it was just heartbreaking to see her, just overshadowed and diminished in that moment. And I just hope that she uses this moment to propel her to greatness, to say, I'm never going to let anybody else make me feel that way again. I don't care who they are. And so Serena truly owes Naomi an apology. But until then, she has a big paycheck that can console her until it happens. But I don't think that Serena will ever let her pride, put her pride aside and humble herself to go to Naomi and apologize to her for ruining what was the biggest day of her life. So guys, that's it for me. Leave your comments below. I know a lot of you aren't going to agree with me, and it really doesn't matter. These are my opinions. I stand by them. But go ahead and leave your comments below. Rate the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And until the next time, I shall talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.